Daniel, you are a handsome man. Good character, good future ahead of you. I mean that sincerely. But I cannot give you my daughter. That is what my father said. Not to me, to the man I was going to marry. Serena is my daughter and I love her, but she is not the right woman for where you are going. She will not complement your life the way it needs to be complemented. You deserve better than what she can give you. And then my father leaned forward across that dinner table and said the words that I still hear sometimes in the quiet of an ordinary afternoon. Now, Tiffany is different. She comes from the right family, she is sophisticated, she is polished, she understands your world in a way Serena simply does not. Tiffany is the kind of woman who will elevate you. That is the woman you should be building your life with, not my daughter. My father sat across from my fiancé, the man I had chosen, the man I had said yes to, the man I had built 2 years of my life with, and did not just tell him I was not enough. He gift-wrapped my best friend and handed her over as the upgrade. And Daniel listened. I did not know any of this was happening. I was at home that evening, making dinner, thinking about centerpieces and guest lists and what song we would use for our first dance. I was planning a future, while my father was quietly dismantling it 3 miles away over a dinner I was not invited to. By the time I found out, it was already done. That conversation happened 11 years ago. Last month, I walked into my father's 70th birthday party on the arm of my husband, and when Raymond looked up from across that room and understood who was standing at his entrance, his face did something I had never seen it do in 50 years of being his daughter. It collapsed. And Tiffany, my best friend of 16 years, the woman my father had decided was more suitable, more sophisticated, more worthy of the life he had curated in his mind, she saw my husband's face and went completely still. Because my husband was Gabriel Voss, and if you know that name, you already understand why the room went quiet. Stay with me, because the story of how I got from that dinner table to that birthday party is the part that matters most. Before I take you back to where this all began, if this story moves you, if it hits somewhere real, take a second right now to subscribe, like, and share this video. Only if it earns it. Only if you feel like someone in your life needs to hear it tonight. Okay, let's go all the way back. My name is Serena. And before I tell you everything, I need you to understand the world I grew up in, because nothing that happened makes sense without it. My father, Raymond, was a man who believed in appearances the way some people believe in religion, deeply, completely, without question. The right address, the right car, the right associations, the right family name sitting beside yours at dinner. These were not superficial concerns to Raymond. They were the architecture of a life well lived, or so he believed. He was not a cruel man. I want to be fair about that. He was warm in his way, generous in his way. He came to my school plays, he taught me to drive, he called every Sunday without fail for 20 years. But Raymond had a hierarchy in his mind, a careful, immovable ranking of people and families and what they were worth. And the tragedy of my life is that for a long time, I did not realize I was being measured against it too. I was his daughter, but I was not, in Raymond's quiet estimation, his most impressive product. I was creative where he valued practicality. I was emotional where he valued composure. I had built a career in interior design, beautiful work I loved, work that was beginning to gain real recognition, but it was not the kind of career Raymond could easily brag about at dinner parties. It did not have a title that landed with weight in the rooms he cared about. Tiffany, on the other hand, my best friend since the age of 14, was everything Raymond's hierarchy rewarded. Her family had money that went back generations. Her mother sat on nonprofit boards. Her father played golf with city councilmen. She was polished in the way that comes not from effort, but from decades of quiet investment in the right schools, the right summers, the right everything. I loved Tiffany, genuinely, completely loved her. She was my person for 16 years, the one I called first with good news and bad news and no news at all, the one who knew every version of me I had ever been. I trusted her with everything. And then there was Daniel. I met Daniel at 27 at a mutual friend's dinner party. He was thoughtful and attentive, and he listened, really listened, in a way that felt rare. We dated for 2 years before he proposed. Simple proposal, just the two of us, a restaurant we loved, no grand performance, just a question and an answer, and two people deciding to build something together. I said yes without hesitation. I was happy, genuinely, completely happy, in the uncomplicated way that feels almost fragile because you are not used to things being this simple. I introduced Daniel to Raymond early. I wanted them to know each other. I wanted my father's blessing, not because I needed it, but because family mattered to me, and I believed in doing things with everyone present and connected. Raymond was cordial, warm even, on the surface. He took Daniel to lunch, then to dinner, then to another dinner, just the two of them, which I encouraged. I thought it was wonderful. Two men important to me building their own relationship. I did not know what was being said at those dinners. I did not know that Raymond had decided, with the calm certainty of a man who has never once doubted his own judgment, that Daniel could do better than his own daughter, that I was not the right match for the life he had decided Daniel deserved, that Tiffany was. I found out on a Saturday morning in March. Not from Daniel, not from Tiffany, from a mutual friend who assumed I already knew, who mentioned something offhand about Tiffany and Daniel and Raymond being involved, and stopped mid-sentence when she saw my face change. I drove to Tiffany's apartment. She opened the door, and I could see it immediately. The guilt, the calculation, the rehearsed version of events she had been quietly preparing. She had known this conversation was coming, and she had been getting ready for it. She told me everything. How Raymond had approached Daniel privately, how he had told him, with all the authority of a father who believed he was doing right by everyone in the room, except the one person who mattered most, that Tiffany was more suitable, more sophisticated, from the right kind of family, the kind of woman who would complement the life Daniel was building rather than complicate it. She told me Daniel had listened. Not immediately. Not without conflict. She was careful to tell me that, as though it softened anything. But eventually, after several conversations with Raymond, after being slowly and methodically convinced by a man he respected, Daniel had listened, and Tiffany had let it happen. She had told herself she wasn't responsible, that Raymond had initiated it, that she hadn't pursued Daniel herself. She delivered this reasoning with the careful composure of someone who had rehearsed it many times, who had constructed a version of events in which she was more bystander than participant. I looked at her standing in that doorway, my best friend of 16 years, and I understood with a clarity that felt like cold water that I had been living inside a version of my life that was not accurate, that the people closest to me had a quiet, settled opinion of my worth that they had never once thought to share with me directly. My own father, my best friend. I drove home. I sat in my apartment for 3 days, barely moving, barely eating, replaying every conversation, every dinner, every Sunday phone call through a new filter that changed the color of all of it. And then, on the 4th day, I got up, opened my laptop, and started researching Barcelona. I had visited once, at 23, for a work trip, 3 days that had lodged in some deep part of me. The light, the architecture, the feeling of walking through a city that did not know your name, or your family, or what anyone had quietly decided you were worth. I needed that more than I had ever needed anything. I sublet my apartment, I told my employer I was relocating, I packed 2 suitcases, got on a plane, and did not look back with anything other than the quiet determination of a woman who has decided that the only opinion of her that matters from this point forward is her own. Barcelona was hard at first. The language barrier, the loneliness, the particular ache of building a life somewhere that has no record of you. There were nights in that first year where I questioned everything, whether I was brave or just running, whether I was rebuilding or just hiding from the version of myself Raymond had decided was not enough. But I kept working. I found a small design firm willing to take a chance on an American with a strong portfolio and a hunger that apparently showed in every meeting. I learned Spanish, not perfectly, but honestly. I built relationships slowly and carefully with people who knew me only as who I was right now, unburdened by anyone else's assessment of who I had been. In my 3rd year, I was approached to lead the redesign of a boutique hotel group expanding across Southern Europe. It was the kind of project that changes a career trajectory permanently. I delivered it in a way that changed more than that, because the man who commissioned it came back the following year with a larger project, and then a larger one still. And somewhere in the middle of the 3rd project, he stopped being a client. His name was Gabriel Voss. I had read about Gabriel before we met. You could not work in European business circles without knowing the name. Self-made, built his first company from a shared workspace in Munich at 24, sold it at 31 for a number that made international headlines, reinvested everything into a hospitality and real estate group that now operated across 4 continents. Forbes had covered him twice. His name was the kind that made rooms adjust slightly when it entered. In person, he was quieter than I expected, serious but genuinely warm. He asked good questions and listened to the answers, the way people do when they are actually interested, rather than just waiting for their turn. He had absolutely no interest in impressing anyone, and that, more than anything, was what impressed me. We were friends for a long time before anything changed. I was cautious in a way I had not been before Barcelona. Gabriel was patient in a way that felt chosen rather than passive, not waiting for me to be ready, simply present, consistently and without condition, until one day I realized that presence had become the thing I organized my life around without noticing. We got married in a small ceremony in the hills outside the city in my 6th year in Barcelona. 30 guests, late afternoon light, a dress I designed myself. I called Raymond to tell him I was married. He was warm on the phone, asked the basic questions. I did not tell him Gabriel's last name. I did not offer details. Raymond had lost the right to the full picture of my life on a Saturday morning in March, years earlier, and I had made my peace with that quietly and completely. When his 70th birthday invitation arrived, I told Gabriel everything. Raymond, Tiffany, Daniel, all of it. He listened without interrupting, and at the end said simply that he would go if I wanted to go. I wanted to go. Not for confrontation, not for a scene, simply to close a loop, to walk into a room that once defined my worth and let it see, quietly, completely, without a single raised voice, what I had become. The venue was exactly what Raymond would choose: chandeliers, white linens, a live quartet, the kind of evening designed to signal arrival to everyone in attendance. Gabrielle and I walked in 40 minutes after the start time. The room was full and settled, comfortable, unsuspecting. I saw Tiffany first. She was near the bar with Daniel, who wore the expression of a man who had spent several years being carefully managed. She was laughing at something, perfectly composed, perfectly presented, and then she looked toward the entrance and the laugh stopped.
Not gradually, immediately and completely. She recognized Gabriel before she recognized me. I watched it happen, eyes going to him first, that slight adjustment of posture people make when someone significant enters a room, and then the slow tracking sideways to the woman on his arm, and the full-bodied stillness when she understood who that woman was. I watched her put it together in real time. The woman Raymond had told Daniel was not sophisticated enough, standing at the entrance of her father's birthday party, on the arm of Gabriel Voss. Daniel saw it seconds later. I watched his face move through recognition, confusion, recalculation, and then settle into the particular expression of a man understanding for the first time the full weight of a decision he made years ago in a restaurant with someone else's father. Raymond saw us from across the room mid-conversation with two men he was clearly trying to impress. He glanced toward the entrance automatically, the way hosts do, and then he saw Gabriel's face. I watched my father go still. Recognition first, because Raymond knew that face, had admired that name, had mentioned Gabriel Voss approvingly in phone conversations I could remember, pointing to him as an example of real success, real substance, the kind of man worth respecting. Then confusion, because what was Gabriel Voss doing at his birthday party? Then understanding, slow and complete and irreversible, as Gabriel's hand moved to the small of my back in the easy, natural way of a man who has done it 10,000 times, and Raymond's eyes moved from Gabriel's face to mine, and the mathematics of it completed itself whether he wanted it to or not. He stood in the middle of his own party with the expression of a man who has just fully understood what he gave away. I walked to him, Gabriel beside me, unhurried. I kissed my father on the cheek, wished him happy birthday warmly and genuinely, because whatever he had done, he was still my father, and I had not come here for a scene. Then I introduced them. "Dad, this is my husband, Gabriel Voss." Raymond shook his hand. He located his composure. Raymond had always been skilled in social situations, but his eyes told the truth his face was working to conceal. They kept moving between Gabriel and me with something in them I had never seen directed at me by my father before. Regret. Real, unperformable, unmanageable regret. Tiffany came over within minutes. She reintroduced herself to me with the careful brightness of someone trying to diffuse something they cannot name. She extended her hand to Gabriel with the practiced warmth I had watched her deploy in rooms for 16 years. Gabriel was courteous. He is always courteous, but he is also a man who built a global business by reading people accurately in 30 seconds, and I watched him read Tiffany completely and give her exactly as much warmth as the situation required, and not 1 degree more. She felt it. I watched her feel it and have nowhere to put it. We stayed 2 hours. We were gracious throughout. When we left, Raymond walked us to the door and held me longer than he usually did, and told me quietly, away from the noise of the party, that I looked happy. I told him I was, that Barcelona had been the best decision I ever made. I did not say the rest. I did not need to. The rest was written clearly across the faces of every person in that room who had once decided quietly and without consulting me that I was not quite enough. If you are still here with me, drop a comment right now and tell me what was the moment in this story that hit you the hardest. And if you know a Serena, someone who was underestimated by the exact people who should have believed in them most, please share this video with them tonight. Let me finish. Raymond called the following week. We talked longer than we had in years. He did not apologize directly. Raymond was never built for direct apology. But he asked about my life with real questions that had space in them for actual answers. It was a beginning, small, imperfect, and very late, but a beginning. Tiffany did not call. I did not expect her to, and I did not need her to. Some bridges are not rebuilt. They are simply acknowledged as gone and walked away from with clean hands. Daniel, I did not think about at all. Gabriel and I flew back to Barcelona 4 days after the party. I watched the city appear beneath the plane as we descended and felt exactly what I felt the first time I saw it from the air, like arriving somewhere that is completely and permanently yours.
Here is what I want to leave with you. Raymond looked at his own daughter and saw someone who needed to be redirected. What his hierarchy could not account for, what all his careful calculations had no category for, was that the daughter he was quietly sidelining was already becoming something he had no framework to measure. Not because she was trying to prove him wrong, but because she was too busy becoming herself to spend her energy on his opinion. That is what I want you to carry from this story. Not the party, not the moment their faces went pale, though I will be honest, that moment was something. What I want you to carry is the 6 years in between, the hard years, the years of building alone in a city that didn't know her name, the years of showing up without applause or validation or anyone from her old life watching. Those years were the real story. The party was just the punctuation at the end of a sentence she had been writing for a long time. You do not need the people who underestimated you to witness your success for it to be real. But if they ever do, walk in slowly, let the room adjust, and be exactly, completely, unapologetically yourself. That has always been enough. If Serena's story moved you tonight, please subscribe to this channel right now. Every week, I bring you stories about people who were counted out and came back as something no one saw coming, and I do not want you to miss a single one. Like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and leave a comment. Tell me the moment that hit you hardest. I'll see you in the next story.